Welcome back, everybody. This is going to be pretty intense today. We are going to deep dive into the ethics of Derell. Now, he is a mental health professional, but he's become quite a controversial figure online. We've got some interesting stuff for you all today. We've got clips of Derell himself talking. We've got a satirical ethics podcast that has been analyzing him. And we've even got, what is it? A song? I don't even know. More like a rant. That he made targeted at one of his critics.
And what we see when we look at all of these sources together is that it really gives us a sort of a glimpse into how he functions, how Derell functions or doesn't in a variety of roles as a therapist, as a father, and even just as a friend. So this deep dive isn't just about professional ethics, it's about how those ethical lines get blurred when somebody's personal life is all over the public stage.
Yeah, exactly. So to kick things off, we've got to start with Derell's own daughter calling into that satirical ethics podcast. 11 Labs, Chapter 0. Now, she chose to remain anonymous, which is understandable, but her testimony is, wow. I mean, hearing a family member speak out about Derell's behavior really kind of sets the stage for us to understand the ripple effects of his actions. And she expressed deep disappointment and embarrassment over her father's actions and talked about how she's seen him manipulate and exploit people. And that's really impacted her own ability to trust in relationships.
You know, it's really striking to me the courage that it takes for a child to publicly call out their parent, especially when that parent is a figure of authority. And I think her willingness to speak despite the potential backlash really highlights the severity of Derell's actions and the depth of hurt that they've caused.
Absolutely. And she even talked about struggling to trust men in her own life, worried that she might unknowingly tolerate similar behavior because of the example that her father has set. And this really drives home the point that this isn't just about online drama, you know. This is about the lasting impact that Derell's behavior has on those closest to him, especially his daughter.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if he understands the weight of being both a father figure and a therapist, both roles that are built on trust and care.
Yeah. And that question of trust, I think, becomes even more critical when we look at Derell's conflict with Triggs, another online personality. We hear Derell downplaying his role in that conflict, claiming it was all miscommunication, and even blaming others in the chat for quote-unquote tripping.
Okay, so blame shift.
Blame shifting, yeah.
So it's like when your roommate spills coffee and blames the uneven table leg, you know.
Yeah.
Everyone does it sometimes.
Sure, but what's concerning here is that Derell is a therapist. He's supposed to be helping people take responsibility for their actions, not showing them how to avoid it. And the fact that he doubles down, claiming that he already knew about the situation and even tried to moderate it, just adds another layer of manipulation to the mix. He's trying to control the narrative and present himself as either a victim or a bystander, when the evidence suggests that that's not the case.
And then there's that line about going, quote, with a having flow and adopting a, quote, have it attitude. I mean, come on. This is a mental health professional. Should clients be worried that their therapist has that kind of apathy?
It certainly raises concerns about his judgment and his professionalism. I mean, think about it. A therapist is someone you confide in, someone who helps you to navigate difficult emotions and situations responsibly. But when that same person is publicly embracing a have it attitude, it really erodes the trust that is so fundamental to the role of a therapist.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, how is that impacting his clients? You know, his daughter, his friendships, anyone.
It's like he's saying that consequences don't matter, which is a pretty dangerous message for someone in his position to be sending. And it also makes you wonder, is this just an act? Or is this really who Derell is? Because if it's the latter, that raises serious concerns about his fitness to practice as a therapist, let alone be a role model for anyone.
Exactly. And this disregard for boundaries shows up in another way, which is Derell's handling of confidential information. He publicly airs private conversations, grievances, specifically mentioning Tiffany Phillips and Kip, two people he was supposedly close to. This is a huge red flag, ethically speaking.
Right. Confidentiality is a cornerstone of therapy, right? Clients need to feel safe sharing their deepest fears and struggles without worrying that their therapist will broadcast those details to the world. It's like a doctor revealing your medical history on social media.
Precisely. And Derell doesn't stop there. He creates explicit songs on YouTube targeting women who have criticized him. He even names one of these tracks Breaking the Culture of Hoeing, directly referencing one of his critics. This is where things get even more troubling because he's using his creative output as a form of public shaming and humiliation.
Right.
It's like he's weaponizing his music to punish those who dare to disagree with him.
And you have to wonder, What does that say about his emotional maturity and his ability to handle conflict constructively? I
Right.
mean, imagine seeking therapy from someone who publicly shames and humiliates people who cross him. Would you feel safe? Would you feel supported?
It's a chilling thought, especially for anyone who might be considering Derell as their therapist. It raises serious doubts about his capacity for empathy and his ability to separate his personal conflicts from his professional responsibilities. It makes you wonder if he applies those same tactics to his personal relationships as well.
And this pattern of exploitation and disregard for boundaries, it gets even more alarming when we start looking at the case of a young man that Derell once mentored. We hear Derell admitting that he offered to pay for evidence of the young man's homosexuality, which is just wow.
It is incredibly disturbing,
Yeah.
especially when you consider the power dynamic that's inherent in a mentorship. Mentors are supposed to be guiding figures offering support and advice to those that they mentor. But Derell's actions suggest a willingness to exploit that power for his own personal gain, without any regard for the potential harm that it could cause this young man. It's like he's using information as a weapon, which is a particularly unethical tactic for a therapist to employ.
And when confronted with the potential for self-harm, if this information were to get out, Derell's response is chilling. He says, I wouldn't care at all. I mean, how do you even process that?
That statement is deeply troubling because it reveals a profound lack of empathy and a disturbing disregard for the well-being of someone that he was supposed to be guiding. It raises serious concerns about his ability to make ethical decisions, particularly when it comes to protecting vulnerable individuals. It also makes you question his understanding of the responsibility that comes with being a mentor and a therapist, roles that demand compassion and a commitment to the well-being of others.
It's like he's completely detached from the potential consequences of his actions. And this isn't an isolated incident. We hear about another case where a woman confided in Derell about her strained relationship with her daughter. Now, this was a particularly sensitive situation because she had recently lost her husband and was clearly grieving. You would expect a mental health professional, a friend even, to offer support and guidance in such a vulnerable moment.
Absolutely. When someone shares their struggles with you, there's an inherent expectation of compassion and discretion, especially in a case like this where this woman is clearly in pain and seeking solace. A therapist should prioritize her well-being and respect her privacy.
Right.
But Derell doesn't.
Instead, he chooses to exploit her vulnerability.
He does.
He exposes these private details on a live stream, collaborating with the woman's so-called adversaries to further humiliate her. It's like he's using her pain as entertainment for his online audience.
It's a complete betrayal of trust, the kind of betrayal that can make people hesitant to ever seek help again.
And it speaks volumes about Derell's character and his fitness to practice.
Absolutely. It demonstrates a lack of empathy, a disregard for boundaries, and a willingness to exploit vulnerable individuals for personal gain. These are all qualities that are fundamentally incompatible with the ethical standards expected of a mental health professional.
Makes you question his entire approach to therapy. If he's willing to exploit and humiliate someone who confided in him, what does that say about his ability to create a safe and trusting therapeutic environment?
It's a valid concern, and it's not just about his professional life. This behavior raises red flags about his ability to maintain healthy and ethical relationships in general, whether it's with clients, friends, or family members.
As speaking of family daughter, Derell's daughter also shared how his actions have impacted her own relationships. She talked about having difficulty trusting men, worried that she might unknowingly tolerate similar behavior in partners because of the example that her father set.
That's heartbreaking, and it really underscores the ripple effects of Derell's actions. He's not just impacting the individuals that he directly harms, he's also damaging the lives of those around him, especially his daughter. His behavior is creating this legacy of distrust and insecurity, and it's affecting her ability to form healthy relationships.
It makes you wonder if he understands the weight of his actions, not just as a therapist, but as a father. I mean, his daughter is learning about relationships from him, and the lessons he's teaching are deeply troubling.
It's a potent reminder that our actions have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for those that we love and those that look up to us. And those consequences can be far-reaching and long-lasting, especially when trust and vulnerability are involved.
And it's not just about the individuals involved. Derell's behavior also contributes to the stigma surrounding mental health, making people hesitant to seek help for fear of being similarly exploited. It's like he's eroding the very foundation of trust that therapy is built on.
Exactly. His actions reinforce this misconception that therapists can't be trusted, that they might use your vulnerabilities against you. This is incredibly damaging, both for the individuals who need help and for the mental health profession as a whole.
So we've got this pattern of unethical behavior, this blatant disregard for boundaries and the well-being of others, and now we have to ask the question, is Derell fit to practice as a mental health professional?
It's a complex question, but one that demands serious consideration. When someone in a position of trust repeatedly exhibits such harmful behavior, it's crucial to assess the potential risks and the need for accountability. And it's not just about his professional license, it's about his fitness to be a friend, a father, a mentor, anyone who holds a position of influence in someone's life.
And that brings us to another incident that really highlights Derell's manipulative tactics and his complete lack of remorse. It involves another online personality known as Kip, with whom Derell had some sort of falling out.
This incident is particularly revealing because it shows how far Derell is willing to go to seek revenge and punish those who cross him. According to Derell, Kip had been spreading rumors and gossiping about him behind his back. Derell claims that he was initially upset about this betrayal, but then he decided to take matters into his own hands.
Okay, so what did he do? Did he confront Kip directly,
Correct.
try to resolve the conflict?
Not at all. He went live and exposed a series of text messages that Kip had sent to Tiffany Phillips, the woman with whom Derell was having an affair.
Wait, so he publicly shared someone else's private messages. What was his justification for that?
According to Derell, it was all about revenge. He felt that Kip had wronged him by gossiping about him, so he wanted to retaliate by publicly humiliating him. But here's the thing. These text messages weren't even about Derell. They were about Kip's relationship with Tiffany.
So he violated someone's privacy and betrayed their trust to settle a personal score. It's like he doesn't even consider the consequences of his actions or the harm he might be inflicting on others.
Exactly, and that's what makes this incident so disturbing. Derell was willing to exploit someone else's personal life, to violate their privacy, and betray their trust, all to satisfy his own petty need for revenge. It shows a disturbing lack of empathy and a complete disregard for the well-being of anyone who gets caught in his crossfire.
It's like he's using information as a weapon, and he doesn't care who gets hurt in the process.
And what's even more concerning is his complete lack of remorse. He doesn't seem to understand or even care that he's done anything wrong. In fact, he often brags about his exploits and mocks his critics, further demonstrating his lack of empathy and his inability to take responsibility for his actions.
It's a pattern we've seen throughout this entire deep dive. A consistent disregard for boundaries, a willingness to exploit others, and a complete lack of accountability.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that Derell's behavior raises some serious concerns about his fitness to practice as a therapist, but it also makes you kind of question, his ability to maintain healthy and ethical relationships in like any area of his life.
Yeah, we've seen how his actions impact his daughters, his friends, and those that he's supposed to be helping. This isn't just about professional ethics. This is about basic human decency. When someone consistently demonstrates this lack of empathy, this disregard for boundaries, and this willingness to exploit others, it really raises some serious red flags about their character as a whole, right? And what kind of role model is he for his daughter? I mean, what is she learning about relationships and how to treat people? It's heartbreaking to think that his behavior might be shaping her views on trust and intimacy.
And her testimony, I think, is such a powerful reminder that the consequences of our actions extend far beyond ourselves. They ripple outwards, impacting those that we love, those we work with, and even those that we interact with online. And those consequences can be incredibly damaging, especially when trust and vulnerability are involved.
It is. It's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about the broader context of this whole situation. Derell isn't operating in a vacuum. He's part of an online community. And a lot of people seem to be either cheering him on or turning a blind eye to what he's doing.
That's such an important point. The silence of bystanders can be incredibly damaging. When we witness unethical behavior and we don't speak up, we become complicit. It sends a message that these actions are acceptable, and it allows that cycle of harm to continue.
So what can we do? How do we create a culture of accountability, both online and offline, where this kind of behavior is not tolerated?
I think it starts with each of us. We have to be willing to speak out against injustice, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. We have to challenge those who abuse their power, and we have to support those who have been harmed.
It's about having the courage to say, this isn't right, and to hold people accountable for their actions. And it's about recognizing that our silence can be just as damaging as our words.
Absolutely. We all have a role to play in creating a safer and more ethical world, and that starts with being mindful of our own behavior, calling out unethical behavior when we see it, and supporting those who have been harmed.
Well, this deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening and honestly pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
But it's also been a powerful reminder that we can't afford to be passive observers. We have to be active participants in shaping the world that we want to live in.
Well said. I think Derell's story is a cautionary tale, but it's also a call to action. It's a reminder that we all have a responsibility to stand up for what's right, to protect the vulnerable, and to hold each other accountable for our actions.
Yeah, we hope this deep dive has given you some things to think about. Maybe even sparked some uncomfortable but necessary conversations. Because ultimately, it's up to all of us to create a world where exploitation and manipulation aren't tolerated, where trust and respect are valued, and where everyone feels safe and supported.
And remember, if you or someone you know needs help, please reach out to a trusted mental health professional. There are ethical and compassionate therapists out there who are dedicated to helping people heal and thrive.
That's right. And with that, we wrap up another deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay vigilant.